In Infosystems, we are a boutique technology consulting firm. We are focused on growing enterprises. We are a Microsoft Gold partner in cloud platform, data analytics, and application development. Cloud9's Wednesday webinar series, it takes place every Wednesday from 1 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Central Time. We try to focus on a lot of topics related to cloud computing, data analytics, and business intelligence, and various other topics. Today's topic is about introduction to Azure Data Factory, and today's speaker is Jay Patel. Now, Jay will take over.
Thank you, Mikla. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Jay, and today we are going to learn about introduction to Azure Data Factory. To start with the agenda of today's webinar, so first initially we'll go through what is Azure Data Factory, then we'll learn about the different Azure Data Factory components, then afterwards we'll have a learning about Azure Data Factory logical flow, then afterwards we'll go through the process of how you can create a pipeline into Azure Data Factory and basic steps for that. And then after we'll have a quick demo. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have a summary of the whole webinar. Okay, so to begin with, just a second. So this is the agenda of today's meeting, and so we'll start with introduction to Azure Data Factory. So what is Azure Data Factory? So you can create, orchestrate, and manage data movement and enrichment through the cloud. So to explain it a little bit more in detail, I would say it's a cloud-based data integration platform where you can orchestrate and manage your data movements from either from on-prem to cloud source, or on even in the cloud from one blob source to another blob storage, or like in a staging environment to the blob storage, or to a SQL Server database. And you can do multiple transformations into that data. So that's a little bit about Azure Data Factory. Then we have different kinds of Azure Data Factory components. So firstly, so there are basically 4 kinds of Data Factory components in Azure Data Factory. So first one is data sets. So through data sets, you create different data sets for, like, let's say you want to copy data from on-prem SQL Server table, database table, to Azure SQL Database, a table into Azure SQL Database. So you create 2 data sets for like on-prem Azure SQL data set, on-prem SQL dataset table, that's a one data set, and then there is this other data set for Azure SQL Database table. So that way you can consume the that, and then you create an activity. So here we are copying the data. So there are different kinds of activities: copy activity or store procedure activity. Then you can control flow, you can keep the conditions, if condition, else. So that I will explain all the activities onto the Azure portal. But so that's an activity. Then a bunch of activities together creates a pipeline. So set of activities which you are using to create the pipeline from, like, copying your data from on-prem SQL Server to Azure SQL Database. And for all of that, accessing the data sets, you create a specific link service. So to access the data set for on-prem SQL table, you create a link service to the SQL server so that you can access the data sets. Then we have so then it's the logical diagram, like how you will proceed in the Azure Data Factory, like what kind of process you will follow. So first, we have different kinds of data sources. So those data sources, we have Azure SQL Database, we have mobile data into some blob storage or everywhere. And that data you ingest into different data sets into Azure, into the data factory data sets. Then you prepare them, you apply some of the modifications or the transformations you want to apply into that. Then after you publish that data to cloud, uh, or to the destination source where you want to copy or move your data. So this is the logical flow of Azure Data Factory. Then we have a basic data factory process through which you can set up a specific data factory pipeline and which you can monitor and manage. So first you'll define the architecture, like how you want to like copy your data or move your data from on-prem to cloud. And so basically you first create the architecture, you set up the objectives, you set and create the flow of whole pipeline. Then you create the data factory. Either you can create using the Azure portal or using PowerShell. You can use Visual Studio also to create data factory. Then you create the link service which will connect to the data and the services. Then you will create the data sets, input and output data sets to copy data from on-prem or whatever you want to copy data, like wherever from here we are trying to copy data from on-prem SQL Server to Azure SQL Database. So I will reference that example all the time so that we'll have clear idea at the end of the presentation. Then we will create the activities. So here we'll have just one activity, copy data activity, but you can add multiple activities, which I will explain a little bit on the portal so that you can have a clear understanding of data factories. Then you can monitor and manage the pipeline on the portal, through which you can either on the portal or you can use a PowerShell to check the run of a pipeline, whether the pipeline succeeded or it threw any failure error, so that you can manage on the portal. So we have a basic understanding of Azure Data Factory for now. So now we will switch on to demo, where we will understand a little bit about different Azure Data Factory, like what is exactly on the portal, and we'll explain about all the components of Azure Data Factory on portal. And then we'll create a data factory to copy data from on-prem SQL database to Azure SQL Database. So let's go ahead and let me show you how does it look like. So let's go to my Azure portal. So we have here a data factory already created, but I can just quickly guide you through that. So you just go to create source onto your Azure portal and you just type data factory in here. Okay, so first here you can see here data factory. Just create. click on create, and you just type in all the details, and you'll be ready with your data factory. So here we already have one data factory created for you, so that we won't waste our time on creating all the so here, once you click on the data factory, you will see there are two tabs, documentation through which you can learn about data factories, and the other one is author and monitor your data factory. So once you click on that, it will prompt you into another tab with the data factory portal. So as you can see here, your data factory here. So let's say we have a data factory webinar demo C9. Here you have 4 different tabs here. First is you can create a pipeline, and you can edit all the components. You can directly create a copy data activity through which you can copy data from one source to another destination. Then you can configure your SSIS integration runtime. You can configure the Git repository. There are some basic overview videos and introduction to data factory. You can lift and shift your SSIS package into data factory also here. So this is just the overview. Then you will see here on the left hand side there are three tabs basically. So first one is the overview, then the author, and monitor your data factory. So if you click on the author tab, you will get to see this whole new view, where here on the left hand side you have pipelines here, you have data sets here, and so here we already had one pipeline created just for the demo, but we will create from scratch. I'll just show you. So let me create a new pipeline. Okay. So first, this is our new pipeline. You can change the name to our demo. And so from this, you will have, there are different activities here. As I told you, custom activities you can create. You can create the notebooks for Databricks, and you can create the copy activity, which we're gonna create here right now. So let me just copy it here. You can just drag and drop and get the activity there. Then there's a data lake analytics activity. So there are general activities where you can execute the pipeline. You can get metadata. You can create the lookup activity. You can execute an SSIS package here. You can execute a stored procedure from here. Some of the web activities and waiting, HT Insight Hive, and so there are various iteration and conditional activities where you can control your data factory or activities here. Some of the machine learning activities has been added recently. So there are a bunch of activities to create a pipeline according to your requirement. And so first, here we have a copy data activity. We'll change the name. Okay, on-prem to SQL Azure, and different parameters you can set here, but we don't need to do that right now. So once you go to the source tab here, you can just click on new, or either if you have we already have created some of the data sets here, but we'll create a new just for your reference. So we want to copy the data from on-prem SQL Server. So here you can see there are a bunch of activities or bunch of sources from where you can get data. You can connect to Amazon Market, AWS, then different Azure Blob Storage, ranging Azure File Storage, SQL Database, Cassandra, DB2, then Google BigQuery, HDFS, MongoDB, and so there are various SAP also. So we need SQL Server here. So SQL Server will click on here, then we'll say finish. Then you can change the name here. Let's say my PC SQL. Okay. You can create a new link service, or you can use current link service you have. So let's say we'll create a new link service here. We apply all the so we for that just one thing, we need an if we are copying data from on-prem SQL Server, we need to create and install the integration runtime into our on-prem SQL Server. So for that, I already have created an integration runtime, but I can just show you and navigate you through. So there will be your private network. Click and then you can just create integration runtime 2. Then you can just click on next. That will create the integration runtime there. Just a second, we have to wait. So it will get created here, and then it will give you the setup here, which you will run on your system, and it will launch the express setup. So there are two options. You can just launch the express setup to set up the integration runtime in your environment, and if you want to manually set up your integration runtime, then you can just download the setup file and apply the authentication key here. But that we won't create here. We won't use this. So let me just say new, and we'll use the integration runtime 1, which we already had created. Then we have our SQL Server. So let me just show you here what is the SQL Server instance here we have. So we have this T-SQL 2012 database, and I can just so we have this table and all the values here. It's okay. And so this is my on-prem SQL Server. This is the Azure SQL Server, where we are gonna copy into this specific table into this webinar demo database. So let me just select the. So here we don't have any data here right now, but we can just when we'll run the pipeline, and that will give you the data which we have copied from on-prem to SQL Server. So here is the instance of our on-prem SQL Server. Okay, so let me just copy the data here. Okay, so that's the SQL Server name here, and the database name is T-SQL 2012. Let me just confirm. Yes, that's T-SQL 2012. So we'll use Windows authentication, and so once you'll apply all the details, it will okay, you can just test the connection here. This will take a little bit time. Okay, so connection successful. Here you will say finish, and it will connect to the T-SQL 2012 database into our on-prem SQL database. There we go. So here we can see here the SQL Server 1 link service we have just created, and if you'll just click on here, it will give us all the tables into that database. So we wanted to copy the data from on-prem from the DBO person table. So we'll select that table, and there'll be okay, and then we'll go to sync, where again here we have all the data sets which we can select for, so we can reuse the data set to create a new pipeline. Then here we have we can just select new and Azure SQL Database directly from here. Say finish, and it will lead us to my Azure DB. Let's change the name. Okay, we already have one Azure SQL Database link service, but if we want to create a new one, that's the same procedure. Okay, Azure SQL demo. Then you can select the subscription you have, and you can select the server name, webinar demo. Here we have, and the webinar demo database. In that SQL server, it will automatically fetch the data, and you can add the credential here. Okay, there we go. Finish. So this will create a connection to the Azure SQL database, which we can utilize to connect to the specific table as a data set. And there we have different parameters. You can apply a different schema here, and then you can apply some parameters if you are running a stored procedure, and then you will have a whole code here, so which you using that JSON code here, which you can use it to okay. So sync database. So here we have my Azure DB selected here. We won't select any store, but you can run any of the store procedure directly from here also, or and you can map data from one table to another table, which will automatically get mapped. If there are any failures, or you can set the movement unit, or you can set the copy parallelism, or you can set up the fault tolerance if you want to skip the incompatible rows, and if you want to log them, like what happened or why that happened with that row, you can just store it into a blob storage or Azure Data Lake. Okay, but we don't need that right now for our, and you can set some of the user properties. So to proceed, we'll just say publish. Also, these three resources still needs to be published. So once we'll publish them, we'll have our data factory pipeline ready to be processed. Okay, so we are ready to go, and here we can validate our data factory pipeline. You can use it, you can debug your pipeline. So there are two ways you can trigger your pipeline. Once you can just trigger on-demand triggering, other you can set up a new trigger to schedule it on a daily basis or every minute. You can just add the name and schedule from start time. If you want it to run for the infinite time, it will run, and if you want it to end on specific time, that also you can set up here. So you can customize your scheduling, but we'll just trigger it for now. So first we'll trigger now. Okay, we'll finish. So the pipeline is running here on the background. Until then you can just work on the other things here. So here we have a monitor tab using which you can monitor your different pipelines. So here is one pipeline which we created earlier. Here you can see the pipeline name and when it started, the duration for how long the pipeline was running, and what kind of trigger that was, so that if you want to monitor that was it the manual trigger or was like it run for on schedule. So here we can see the our webinar demo pipeline is succeeded. So let me just refresh it here. Okay. Just get back to here. So that way you can monitor your pipeline runs, and let's just cross verify into our database here. So here we didn't have anything in on our Azure SQL Database. We'll execute this one, and there we go. Select. Okay, so that's what we had in our on-prem. So that's how you can create a basic pipeline into Azure Data Factory, but okay. So this is let's get back to the presentation. So this was a quick demo, and then to summarize today's webinar, so it is basically a cloud-based data integration service through which you can create the data-driven workflows into the cloud. You can orchestrate and automate the data movement and data transformation, which we just saw that we can, you can automate using the scheduling, and you can create just a pipeline. So now I will just ask if anybody has any questions related to Data Factory or our presentation today. You can
go ahead and yeah, sorry, who was that?
Yeah, I was just saying that if you have any questions, then you can just type into the chat window and we can answer your questions.
Yeah. All right, so looks like we have questions. I would request all the attendees if you can share your email address in the chat window. We will send you the recording and the deck of this presentation. So please go ahead and share it in the chat window when you get a chance. Thank you, Dennis. We will send it out by the end of this week. And we also have our other presentation decks and recordings on our website. I will share that with you in the email as well. All right, so with regards to the Azure Everywhere free assessment, it is a Microsoft and a Cloud9 joint investment. This is a consulting service that is available for your organization, and depending on the organization, it may be free, or you may also use these consulting hours to get a roadmap to one of the services like Azure Migration, SQL Upgrade, Business Intelligence, and analytics, etc. So if you're interested, please reach out to us at c9sales@cloud9infosystems.com, or you can call us at 855-225-6839. And you can also get in touch with us through the contact page on our website, cloud9infosystems.com. So please do reach out to us if any questions at all. Our next webinar will be on the June 27th, and we will be sending out communication regarding the topic very soon. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you in our next session. Have a very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks.